Welcome back into the Pig Trail Show and welcome into another Hog Hoops Report. That is Kevin McPherson. I am Jacob Morris. And Kevin, we are in the middle of the summer, which means, we're focused on roster building. We're focused on Cal. We're focused on all of this different stuff. And we'll get to Cal and we'll get to Pro Hogs a little bit later. But, I know you want to start with J.J. Andrews. Obviously, it was a class of 2026 priority for Arkansas. It was, you were on the record saying to me, unless something crazy happens, I think with the legacy connection, he'll end up being a Razorback. We know he's going to be a Razorback. He's committed, but we're going to talk a little bit about his Peach Jam performance. He earns MVP. His team, Brad Beal Elite, wins it for the second straight time. Kind of putting on, putting on a show of just what he is capable of on the national stage. Sometimes it's easy to forget just how good this guy is in the state of Arkansas. He had it all working this week, and it was a pretty darn impressive showing for him.
Yeah, and you say back-to-back Peach Jam titles. Brad Beal, as storied as that program is, when you look at the Nike EYBL and that circuit, guys like Jason Tatum, guys from in-state, Moses Moody, Nick Smith Jr., who was the #1 overall player in his class a few years ago, nobody won a Peach Jam title in that program until J.J. Andrews did it. And as a 16 and under level last year, this year the highest level 17U. And let's throw in a couple of state titles. He was an MVP of a state title as well as a high school sophomore. So he's a four-time champion. And he's still got a senior season of high school to play before he's officially a Razorback and competing at that level. So, winner, if that's a skill. Winning is a skill. We could talk about what guys can't do, what they can do. Who's got the bag on offense, who can knock down threes, who can, fly above the rim, all this stuff. Give me the guy that plays the right way every single possession. Not that you're not going to make mistakes, but it's never about him. It's about winning the play to win a game, to accumulate that and win a game. And Calipari was courtside, as were other members of Arkansas staff throughout the week. The 2 weeks, 4-day live eval periods, Thursday through Sunday last week, Thursday through Sunday, which was Peach Jam on Nike this week. And so Calipari is doing it in front of his future coaches. But winner, that's the biggest word. That's the only word. If you can only have one, that's the only one that applies to him. If you can only use one, that's the only one that makes sense. That's what it's all about. And, he's not just a role player kind of guy that helps you win. Those are great too. He's a star level player that takes you to that winner's circle. And that's what Calipari's building around, and it will be his third roster when Andrews comes in as a true freshman. Big, strong, I call his game the slash, clash, and cash game, because he's good with that little crossover, getting downhill in his slash. Then when the body's coming, there's contact. He's blowing right through that for the most part. And then he just cashes it in with a score, or he gets the free throw line. So today in this title game, 20-point win, but it was close through the better part of three quarters. JJ finishes with 20 points, 7 of 13 from the field, 6 of 6 at the line, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal, played all 32 minutes. And if you look at the quarterfinals, semifinals, and then this title game, and there was a close game where JJ made the game tying and game winning free throws each, with 20 seconds left in the semifinals. You look at the fact that it's not just putting up numbers to balloon out a win, but even in the close games, he was performing like an MVP. But the 3-game average, 20.3 points per game, 5.3 rebounds, 2.7 assists, 54.3% from the field, 70% from the free throw line, averaging 10 free throw attempts per game in these 3 games, quarters, semis, and finals. What else do you want from a guy? Oh, he's a good defender. He's a great teammate. He never pouts. He's had huge second halves. You watch him the first half, he's getting others involved, and he's, dapping up his teammates. You don't see one bit of concern on his face, whether he has 2 points or 20 points. He's the same dude, just keeps coming and keeps coming and keeps putting pressure on you in that downhill game. And he, when you looked at him through the spring, efficient from 3 on low volume, and improving his mid-range and 3-point shooting, but not getting carried away with it, not taking bait when he's sometimes left open and just jacking up shots to prove a point. He knows what the assignment is. He goes to the strengths in the wheelhouse, and he just keeps coming at you until you just kind of cave in. And those second halves, man, is the difference between winning a title like this and maybe getting knocked out before you ever got here.
It's a great point, and to that point, a couple of things stood out to me when you're kind of looking at the tournament in totality and his performance. First was, the fact that they played 12 games in 11 days. So that was because they lost a couple games early in pool play. And it's a reminder of just how crazy these events are and the type of
Mhm.
stamina required to perform at the level that he did. And you mentioned it there in terms of him just being a winning player, in terms of, he's going to make an impact no matter what happens. The championship game is such a great example of that from the standpoint that it was 2 points, 4 rebounds, and an assist at halftime. And then he comes out and he scores 18 in the second half. And I think that speaks exactly to what you're talking about in terms of he just keeps coming at you. He is a relentless player. He's a winning type of player. And he's a guy that steps up and makes plays for his team at the right time.
Yeah, we've talked about what he's done in the championship bracket. Let's go back to pool play. He matched up with the nation's number one player, Tyron Stokes. Oh, by the way, Tyron Stokes is actually bigger than JJ, 6'7", 245. JJ 6'6", 225. And you're talking about, a 24 point, 10 rebound double double for JJ Andrews, clearly the best player on the court. 18 of those 24 points in the second half again, and that's what blew open a close game into a runaway. And it's just kind of the same storybook ending each time. He gets stronger as the game goes on, and he forces teams to wilt under the will of what he wants to do. But he does it in a way where you don't feel like he's just out there forcing everything, success or no success. You can tell when a player's just determined to take a game over and make it all about them. He takes games over in ways that you really don't feel like he's trying to, push everybody aside and do it on his own. Like Teen Wolf or something like that.
Hmm.
It's I don't know if you remember the selfish stage of Teen Wolf,
Yeah.
and Michael J. Fox in that movie back in the '80s. That's way before your time, Jacob. No, it's part in the flow, part and parcel of flow of game. His teammates still having success, but once they start turning the ball over to him and let him get downhill, that's how these close 2, 3 possession leads get expanded out to 20-point wins.
Yeah, yeah. And what I love most about his mentality, his attitude is, 24/7, they had the quote of him post game after the championship win. And they asked him, what is this? Or he was
Mm.
asked, what does this say about you as a player or whatever it might be? And Kevin, to your point, he said, just going to say the quote. They're going to say JJ Andrews is a winner. You can't say he don't win. He's going to do whatever it takes. And I think that speaks to the type of player he is. And it speaks to the type of guy, Cal talks about this all of the time, not to oversell all of this. You can be talented on the court, you can have all the skills in the world on the basketball court, but they are looking for guys that fit the program. And it seems like JJ Andrews kind of fits that puzzle piece in pretty perfectly in the class of 2026.
Absolutely, and that's all I've said about him since covering him
Yeah.
back when he was coming out of 8th grade.
Yeah.
He could take every competitive situation I've seen him in. He can just at his impose his will at any time and just make it all about him. And
Yeah.
but he wins a different way. He plays the right way, and he throws enough of that in there where you're like, man, he you look it up at the end of the game, and he's leading he's the leading scorer, probably up there in the rebounds, padding other stats, but it's not token stuff. It really impacts winning, and you're just like, guys, the guy is a winner.
Yeah.
And I remember when the staff was still new here, and they asked me about him, and I just had 2 points to make. I'm like, forget about rankings. He's a 5-star in my mind. Forget where it lands. This guy is a winner, and he will help you win. The other thing was, to treat him like a priority recruit. You guys recruited a high level, a lot of top 5, top 10 5-star guys.
Hmm.
I would roll out that same kind of pursuit with him out of the gates. And so that was my advice. That was my talking points. I'm not trying to take credit for anything, but I can tell you that I've seen him. I see him, and I've seen him since he was young. Every players get better, they develop, they grow physically, whatever. All those things happen, but at the core was always this kind of player. And I think that's something that I really saw immediately because I've seen the same quality in some of Arkansas's top in-state guys like Moses Moody, others, Isaiah Joe, just these selfless. You go all the way back to Sidney Moncrief and the triplets, guys that are just they're not the flashy guys. They're just the guys that are flashing credentials because they keep getting you to the winner's circle. They keep getting to the highest levels of success. those are the kind of guys you roll with and want to roll with. And oh, by the way, he is a star level player. It's not like, again, he's just some, fifth or sixth guy. And those are great too. You got to have them impacting winning. He's at a star level, impacting it in ways that I think will transition and translate as a freshman at Arkansas. I'm not saying he won't have growth spurts or growing pains and, ups and downs. Most
Mhm.
freshmen do, no matter how good they are. But at the end of the day, it's going to be hard to take him off the court. He'll have a starter value as a freshman.
JJ Andrews, 2025 Peach Jam MVP over his last 8 games, 18.5 points per game. To your point about doing a little bit of everything, 5.9
Yeah.
rebounds per game, 2.1 assists per game, 2.1 steals per game, flashing what he's capable of. There's a while to get to until he reaches campus, but something to be excited about big time for the Hogs and Hog fans as a whole. We're gonna hit a quick break. When we come back, we're gonna talk about Cal in Little Rock, as well as Cal on John Rothstein's show. A lot to cover there. But first, a quick break and a message from our sponsors. All right, back here on the Hog Hoops Report. And Kevin, let's talk a little bit about Cal. We covered JJ Andrews there, and it was a
Mm.
busy week for the head hog. He was in Little Rock, he was on John Rothstein's show. He gave about 45 minutes there with John talking about all things.
Mhm.
Had some good stuff about the portal, good stuff about schedule construction for this year's team, the importance of retention, all the above. I'll just leave it open for you. Where do you want to start in terms of the week Cal had and all he seemed to accomplish this past week?
Yeah, early in the week I was there. He was at the Rotary Club here in Little Rock, about an hour long program, and he did kind of like a fireside chat, more conversational than just him standing up and giving a speech. There were a handful of questions from the audience after that he talked about. And if you want to talk about looking at the upcoming season, just the what came out of that was me asking him in a media scrum afterward, what about this Baylor game? It seems like you
Yeah.
mentioned it, but we've been hearing maybe not. And he said, yeah, it's likely not going to happen. And when we got to this working through the schedule, kind of moved on from that. So that puts that to bed.
Hmm.
Arkansas Baylor played last year on a neutral court in Dallas. The idea was, and he'd referenced this earlier in May, that Baylor would be back in quote unquote here at a speaking engagement back in Little Rock at the time. And so you were wondering, and then, or I was, but here, does that mean the central Arkansas area? Because he's speaking that day when he brings it up in that area, or here as in at home, we're
Hmm.
here home in Arkansas. Home would be Bud Walton Arena. So kind of back and forth. How were they getting that worked out? Because it was technically a neutral site last year, not a home game for Baylor, although closer to Waco, Dallas is obviously than Fayetteville. And then he puts that to bed. Talked non-conference schedule. Talked about he's really hammering down on his opinions about the transfer portal. We heard him bring it up in the post practice presser week before last when he had the media in for an hour window of practice. Brought it up again at this Rotary Club. You mentioned the John Rothstein thing he did podcast, and he's talking about it some more. He's a big advocate for giving players one time
Yeah.
free pass to transfer and play the next season. After that, maybe have to sit out like it was old school. Maybe he's wanting to maybe tamp down and tame what's kind of become a wild, wild west of the transfer portal. And then the premium that's put on NIL because of the ability just to move on somewhere else. Players the ability to hold programs hostage for more money or those kind of things. So he's really drilled down on that as much as anything lately. If you want to look about beyond what he's talked about outside of his own team and scheduling, things like that. So I thought that was interesting when he spoke to the crowd about that. It was a famous retired general, Wesley Clark, who most people know who that is. That was asking about NIL, and that's where Calipari started kind of delving into some of these talking points. I think the other thing is he continues to talk about the strength of the non-conference schedule. Forget Baylor for now; it's still a strong
Yeah.
non-con, and how that's a reflection of his feelings about this team and what they're able to handle, the load they're able to handle, the level of competition they're able to handle. Because the SEC is once again arguably the best conference in college basketball coming into year two for Calipari as the head hog.
Yeah, you covered it there. In terms of the John Rothstein interview, a couple of things stood out there. First was what you just talked about right there, where he talked about, the schedule that you make is a reflection of the team that you have. And,
Mhm.
with college football, right, some of these matchups that you'll see are made 10, 15 years out or whatever it might
Right,
be. It's not the case in college basketball. You really
right.
can gauge what you have and then go out and make decisions scheduling wise. And he had a funny quote about that where he said, you make the schedule, the players are ultimately the ones who have to play it, right? And so the amount of competition that Arkansas has, and obviously what they'll see to your point in the SEC slate, this team is one that he's confident in and is confident that it's going to perform well early. And then you mentioned him talking about the transfer portal. He has made that, man, his calling card. He said, we got to get this thing fixed. And it was funny. John, I think Rothstein was asking him about expanding the NCAA tournament. And Cal just was like, no, what we need to address is fixing the transfer portal. And it was what you described in terms of, hey,
Mhm.
maybe a one time transfer, whatever it might be. He also talked about, hey, if somebody stays at a school for 4 years, reward them with one more year. Allow them to get
Yeah.
extra NIL opportunities as well as further their education. And I think Cal catches a lot of heat sometimes for he was, oh, what is he talking about? He was the one and done guy or whatever it might be. But to me, it was a grounded approach that he had just in terms of he was playing with John. And he asked him, he said, hey, if a guy transfers 4 times, is he really graduating? Is he really getting a
Right.
college degree? And Rothstein laughed and said, absolutely not. And that's where this comes from is the idea that if we're going to sit here and say, hey, we're about the student athlete as well, wink, wink, there needs to be regulations on that along with everything else that comes with it college basketball wise.
Yeah, Calipari has been a lightning rod. He's been out in front. You look at the one and done area, you look at the freedom of players, helping players, not just about helping the institution, but trying to help players financially, those kind of things. He caught a lot of criticism over the years and that it wouldn't work and things that he was doing. And now you see an environment that's more in step with some of the ideas he had. And I don't think it's being hypocritical, some of the things he's saying, because he's probably a guy that found a middle ground and now seeing trends that move even beyond what he envisioned as what's good for players. I think there was always a middle ground there. So I think the things he brings up now are valid. I don't think it makes him a hypocrite at all, even though he's been a guy that said, go, be a one and done and go play professionally and make your money. Because you're saying, well, where was the concern about
Yeah.
education there? Well, the whole thing with education is career and the opportunity to make money. And for basketball players, that window is not going to last forever, some less than others. And if you're that good, you should go make that kind of money.
Yeah.
And it gives you the freedom to continue your education in your own time if you choose to do that. But for the long term guys that aren't necessarily slotted like that, that can make the money NIL now through the college avenue, that there's a cap to how much they're going to get of that. And if they're in college that long, it probably means there's not a longer path professionally after that. And so the education part does. So I don't think he's a hypocrite. I think
No.
each situation you have to take it based on its own merits and try to make it make sense. So I'm on the same. I agree with him on this. I actually agree with him on where he's going with that. Nothing against players having freedom of movement. And the old talking point was, well, college coaches can leave whenever they want. But you don't see college coaches on the regular jumping from job to job every year.
Yeah.
Every year there are college coaches that move on, but the same one, you know what I'm saying? So you kind of don't want to make those comparisons anymore because they're really not apples to apples anymore.
Yeah, I think if we saw a coach go 4 places in 4 years, there might be something else going on. You know what I mean? It's not an
Right.
exact comparison. I get where people are coming from with that, but
Yeah.
I think that there's a middle ground with all things. I think a lot of times people say it's one thing or the other. You either pay them or you don't. No, you either
Mm.
let them transfer or you don't. No, there's probably a middle ground in there, and I think that's what Cal's getting at. I encourage people to go watch it. 45 minutes of Inside College
Yeah.
Basketball podcast. It was Cal really got into a lot of good stuff there and kind of a good insight into his window of thinking heading
Mhm.
into this season. But we're gonna hit another quick break here. When we come back, we'll cover some Pro Hogs Summer League time. But first, a quick break. Back here on the Hog Hoops Report and wrapping up shop, Kevin McPherson and Jacob Morris with you. Kevin, quickly before we go, we are in Summer League season. There are a couple pro hogs getting active in Summer League. John L. Davis off of the roster last year. We're not seeing a Thero, unfortunately, but there's a lot of past guys as well still involved in the Summer League.
Jordan Wall's getting ready for year 3 with the Boston
Mhm.
Celtics. This is, a big opportunity for him. He's been good. He's been efficient,
Yeah.
15 points per game and shooting around 37.5, 38% from three on fairly low volume, but still taking those 3 and D wing opportunities, getting better. That's where he needs to get better. It's just the as the fourth or fifth option, the ball moves to him open off the creativity of others. Just needs to knock it down consistently. He's done that one more game today. So we'll look at what he looks like statistically today. But so far through 3 or 4 games, I thought Jordan Walsh has shown well for himself. The 6'6" wing, former Razorback, one and done, helped the team in his one season to a
Hmm.
Sweet 16 run a couple of years ago. You've got Stanley Amudi, a bit older guy that's been on, undrafted free agent 2-way deals. He's with Milwaukee right now on a 2-way contract. But he's also had a fairly productive summer league, several double-digit scoring games. You look up sometimes at 6'6", he's got 2 or 3 block shots in the stat sheet. He is athletic and
Yeah.
strong, and you just don't see him coming. You think of him as, maybe not that kind of guy, but he is a good rebounder at the wing spot, an efficient three-point shooter. So he's had a good summer league. Again, an older guy. Mason Jones going into year 6 is mostly a 2-way player, mostly a G League guy. G League Finals MVP this past season with the Sacramento Kings Summer League team. He's had some double-digit scoring games. I think his last outing, yet the day before yesterday, 17 points, 3 of 5 from three, 8 of 8 at the foul line. And so he had a good 17-point game there for the Kings and a win. And so the Kings are playing. They've advanced I believe, to the title game for the Las Vegas Summer League. That's being played today as well. So we'll keep an eye on Mason Jones. You mentioned Nelly Davis. He had at least one. There were some games he did not see the floor for the
Hmm.
Magic, but some others he did. And he had at least one double-digit scoring game, a 10-point effort, a few games ago. So he has gotten to see the court. We'll see if he's able to figure out a way to get himself a 2-way deal or land in the G League or if it's overseas or what's next for him. But summer league is wrapping up after today.
Yeah, it's always fun to see these guys get opportunities in the summer league. John L's one, I think you keep your eye on just in terms of where he ends up out of summer league, and an interesting fit, potentially veteran guy, whether it's
Yeah.
overseas, G League, whatever it might be. It'll be interesting to follow him. But that's all the time we have on this week's Hog Hoops Report. That is Kevin McPherson. I am Jacob Morris. We will talk to you next week. More Picture Show coming up on the other side of the break.